Hello, and welcome to MRA's 5-Minute HR Feed, the podcast where we share quick and practical information. In the time it takes you to go grab a cup of coffee, you'll gain insights into hot topics and pressing HR issues. I'm your host, Nicole Morehouse, and we're glad you're listening. Before we start, here's our usual disclaimer that the information being shared is not and should not be considered legal advice. Now let's dive into our topic.
Last month, we gave you a few end-of-year reminders. Well, guess what? It's 2026. So today, let's tackle some human resources issues with some honesty, but a dash of hope. It's a new year. Today, we're talking about familiar feelings that HR professionals have everywhere. The beginning of the year offers a lot of hope and exciting opportunity, but also realistically can be a bit frustrating. The new year often brings a sense of renewal and endless possibility, fresh starts, chance to start new initiatives, revisit policies, the ability to spark positive change in your organization. And many HR professionals look forward to different initiatives, like finding new talent, bringing those new talent on board, launching new programs, setting new goals. At the end of last year, you're trying to meet those year's goals and you get to start fresh in the new year. But of course, we can't sugarcoat it, right? The same headaches that we had in 2025, they're going to pop up again in 2026. We're talking about things like leave abuse, recurring employee relations issues, lots of scrambling. And of course, what I'll focus on today is compliance updates, many of which have a January 1st effective date. So let me take a guess at what's on your mind, or should be on your mind. It's on my mind, so it's probably on your mind as well. Regulating AI. We get a lot of discussion. We have a lot of discussions around AI. Me, my colleagues, and our members. If you're an employer, keep an eye on this. Illinois, for example, Illinois employers, you're awaiting a final rule on the use of AI in employment. So that is something that could potentially, if you're not familiar with this, might keep you up at night because that is on the horizon. Compensation. There's growing trends in pay equity and transparency. There are minimum wage changes. A lot of those happen on January 1st or July 1st. But ask yourself, do you know how many local jurisdictions have local minimum wage ordinances? And does that minimum wage ordinance impact exempt salary thresholds in those locations? So think about that. Ask yourself that question. Job protected leave and paid leave initiatives. A lot of states are passing legislation that offers additional job protected leave and paid leave, so no longer just FMLA protections. Our friends in Minnesota, for example, have been feeling the love on this for a few years straight now. Contract restrictions is another area that I'm keeping an eye on. Do you use confidentiality agreements, non-compete agreements, repayment agreements? These are typically very heavily scrutinized. The crafting of these agreements, how they're crafted, what they say, who they apply to, all of those different variables, what jurisdiction you're in, those sorts of things. One thing that I'm keeping an eye on that I see recurring is stay or pay provisions, for example. That's becoming a very popular and trending problematic area within these contracts. So if you have a repayment agreement, for example, there's often a stay or pay provision. Hey, we're going to do this for you financially, but then you have to stay with us for this long. Otherwise, you have to repay us. And that's called a stay or pay provision. Those are becoming very problematic as well. Independent contractors, that is always been and continues to be a highly problematic area of law for employers. But do you know your state's laws on independent contractors? Employers in Wisconsin have multiple laws that define independent contractor. And so knowing that and making sure that you're not inadvertently missing one of the laws or the interpretation of law of those laws could be problematic if you are someone that hires independent contractors. And we'll see some ebbs and flows with this next one with immigration compliance, depending on headlines, executive orders, and all of those sorts of things. When I started in HR, I was trained to handle I-9s as if we could be audited at any moment. Young professional right out of college, terrified that we were going to get an I-9 audit. And in actuality, we were never audited. But today, employers are realizing that this is a strict area of compliance enforcement. I'm also keeping an eye on wage and hour issues, in addition to the growing trend of different local wage and hour laws. On the federal level, we were given the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and that threw us a bit of a curveball as we need to start looking at things like tracking FLSA overtime as a standalone hours and earnings code, which is not at all a small task. Of course, we continue to keep an eye on leaves of absence and accommodations as always a top reason that we get questions on the HR hotline here at MRA. And so that is an area that could encompass a lot of different things. And so that's probably top of mind is you as well. Again, referencing Minnesota. I know the state there has been really promoting their new paid leave program, which kicks off for employees to take advantage of that benefit starting January 1st. And so some of you listening might be in those leave situations currently. Sometimes it feels like we're stuck in an infinity loop. I don't think any of these issues are drastically different or new. They're perhaps more important in 2026 than they were in previous years, but these are not drastically new issues, but it just highlights what the types of things that HR professionals have to worry about on an ongoing basis. Again, that infinity loop, facing the same problem with just a new calendar hanging on the wall, essentially. Not that many of us probably have calendars that we hang on the wall, so your Outlook calendar, let's call it that. So how do we keep our optimism alive as HR professionals? Here are a few strategies for you to help you kind of enter the year with some additional encouragement. Celebrate your small wins. Make sure to take time to recognize your own progress. It doesn't matter how small or incremental those wins are. Don't overlook anything that you've accomplished. Every single contact with an employee, discussion with a manager, anytime you've resolved a conflict, every policy that you've updated, those are all wins. And you probably, at the end of a year, could list thousands of wins. Reframe your challenges as opportunities. Look at these recurring issues as chances to innovate, offer new solutions, and be a strong communicator amongst your team. Make sure to keep in contact with your HR peers or other professionals that you network. Make sure you have a good sounding board for frustrations and triumphs and that you're not alone in the journey. And of course, prioritize self-care. For some practical tips, I'm going to make it super short and sweet. Audit, update, monitor, and consult. Again, audit, update, monitor, and consult. Those are 4 very simple steps to keep on repeat. Think about what you're doing in order to stay in compliance with these issues. And when we talk about consult, make sure that you are leaning on your resources. Lean on resources like us, like MRA, for example. If you need help with something in the HR space or if it's strategic, there's a very good chance that we can help you. And remember that the start of the year is truly what you make of it. Embrace the excitement, learn from your frustrations, and focus on the positive impact that you are creating. Look forward to an article on this topic with some additional resources in the next issue of Inside HR, one of MRA's newsletters. If you are not receiving Inside HR from MRA, be sure to contact us today to ensure delivery. Thank you for tuning in, and I am hoping that you start this year with some pep in your step.
Thank you for listening to MRA's 5-Minute HR Feed. Be sure to follow and connect with us for more podcasts and updates. If you're a member and have questions, you can always connect with MRA's 24/7 HR hotline by emailing infonow@mranet.org or by calling 866-474-6854.